Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 135 of the Story Stream. It is an overcast day here where I am. The end result being I spent quite a lot of time adjusting the light settings on my overhead camera. I rely a lot on natural lighting in my space. You can tell by all the windows I have behind me. So on dark days like today, it makes it hard. It makes it hard for my camera to pick up everything, and I think I have the settings where I want them. I was saddened today. I have some news. I was saddened today to hear about the passing of children's book creator Jerry Pinkney. He's most famous probably for this book, The Lion and the Mouse, a retelling of the famous Aesop's fable. But he has also, I have also in my collection these ones, The Tortoise and the Hare, and The Grasshopper and the Ant. There's something lovely in all of his works. But I want to show you something at the end of this book, which is this. If you know the fable, The Grasshopper and the Ants, you know it ends with this character being left out in the cold. But in this story, in this scene here, you see the ants down below in their home, the grasshopper out in the cold. And you see him invited inside by the queen ant. I had heard there he is celebrating with all the ants of the colony, making music and merrymaking. Look at that little flower cap. I had heard that Jerry Pinkney was one of the two kindest people in children's book publishing. And looking at his art, I believe that's true. How are you today? I hope wherever you are, your light levels are doing fine. And if you're able, find any one of these books and read them and think about their creator. We are here today to pick up our story, to pick up on our story of Joe Cabbage and Franklin Apple, which we've worked on over the last 3 episodes, 132, 33, and 34, and which we're going to pick up today, and which I'll admit I'm going to need help with because we're at a major point in the story. We'll need to decide what we do, and I think we're going to turn to our random word picker for help there. I think that's it. Let's get started. Let's switch to the overhead camera and see just how well I adjusted the settings. My hands look purple. Well, how about that? Joe Cabbage was one of the kindest people in Food City. We should name someone Jerry. Oh, but then people might think I'm putting my own name in the work. Let's catch up to where we were. Here we are. Joe Cabbage lived in the Ginger Root apartment building. Every morning he would walk down from his room and out the front door. He would stand on the top step, put on his hat, take a deep breath, and say to himself, "What fun things will happen today?" Next door to Joe Cabbage lived Franklin Apple. Franklin Apple would leave his apartment, walk down the stairs, put on his shoes, and mutter, "What terrible things are going to happen today?" Franklin Apple was a pessimist. Nothing good will happen today. Franklin Apple was a pessimist. Wherever Franklin Apple walked, a dark cloud followed. His sour face made others feel as if bad things were in store. Lily P. was setting up chicken story time in Blueberry Park when Franklin walked by. "Joining us today, Franklin?" asked Lily. Not in this weather, replied Franklin. If it rains, we'll all get sore throats. There was only a single cloud in the sky, but somehow the chickens all suddenly had to be somewhere else. Lily was not impressed. Across town, Pablo Pepper was setting up his paints to begin another exciting project. I have an extra brush, said Pablo. Would you like to help? I don't know, said Franklin. I don't know, said Franklin. What if we mess something up? There we go. Let's cross all that out. That would be terribly embarrassing. It would, sighed Pablo. He lost his nerve and packed up his things and went home. At the end of the day, Joe Cabbage and Franklin Apple met at their apartment. How was your day, Franklin? Asked Joe. Not great, muttered Franklin as he headed up the stairs. Story time was canceled, and I never got to ask Pablo if I could help him paint. That night, Joe Cabbage lied in bed and thought about his neighbor. Franklin needs help, said Joe. He thought for a while. Suddenly, an idea hit him. Joe hopped out of bed and got to work. The next morning, when Franklin came down the stairs, he found a sign waiting for him. Don't look up, Franklin read. Looks like Joe's handwriting. A moment later, something fell on his head. Good morning, Franklin. It was Joe. He had made a hat for Franklin. I was thinking about you last night, said Joe, and I had the idea your days might be more fun if you wore this hat. I don't see how a hot hat can help, said Franklin. The next time someone asks you a question, don't say anything. Just pull on that string. You'll see, said Joe. The next time someone asks you a question, don't say a thing. Just pull that string. The string will make my days better, said Franklin. Guaranteed, said Joe. At Horseshoe Park, the two friends ran to Eric Strawberry. He was leading the Parakeet Orchestra. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Franklin, said Eric. Good morning, Eric, said Joe. How's rehearsal? Great, said Eric. Would you like to hear a song? Franklin was worried the singing birds might attract a wild panther, but he didn't say so. He just pulled the string. Pow! The hat exploded in a burst of confetti streamers and balloon letters. The word yes floated proudly above his head. I don't like that word proudly. We can fix that. The word yes floated above his head. Franklin, Joe, and Eric all jumped. The parakeets all fainted. We're sorry, Eric, said Joe. What can we do to make it right? Asked Franklin. We were about to take a break anyway, said Eric, but maybe you could take that hat somewhere else. How about this? Maybe you could take that hat somewhere else, said Eric. We could use a rest. We could use some quiet. How about? Joe and Franklin walked on. Across the park, they ran into Lee Bean. Anyone want to ride a llama? Asked Lee. Joe nudged Franklin. Not on your life, said Franklin. This hat is nothing but trouble. But to the llama, the hat looked delicious. Did it say the hat or the string? The hat. The hat looked delicious. It bit the string and pulled. Pow! The hat exploded once again. Lulu, come back. I told you this hat was trouble. And this is where we ended with the idea of Joe and Franklin starting a very small stampede. But I wasn't that pleased with that when we ended on Monday. So what can we do? Do we have any ideas what might happen? So far the hat has frightened a flock of birds into fainting. He could surprise a llama. They could ride it into town. I wonder if he could use the hat for good, or if there's some benefit he could have from that hat. I mentioned seeking help. Let's do this. I think the original, we started this story with a few words. Let's see. We started with the prompt words, door, cabbage, accept, and calm. So we have door from their apartments, cabbage, of course, Joe Cabbage. Accept is such a weird word. I might take that out of the database. And calm, we can, the parakeets might need a bit of calm, so we could work that into the story. But let's go to our word picker, and maybe we can find something that'll help guide us in this next part of our story. Wait a minute. As maybe the hat could act as an alarm to wake someone up. That'd be a good use of that hat ultimately. And I hear footsteps. And here comes Shasta. It is a very late start we're getting today. It's nearing 5 and Shasta knows it's almost time for a walk. Let's do this. Whenever we're stumped, we should just doodle a few ideas. What was that? That's the end of the beans? Well, we have a new friend in town. It's Lee Bean, who we've just drawn for the first time on Monday. Let's see. It'd be a really funny picture to have all 3 characters on the llama. Actually, I like that idea a lot. Oh, thanks, Ford. Actually, I know what the problem is now. Let me see. I just when I reinstalled the microphone, I didn't reinstall it on every scene. Thanks for the heads up. That means it's blank the last few times I've used it, which was only 3 episodes ago. Okay, I can reinstall that, but I won't do it now. Hey, Ford, when I went into YouTube and it was on my creator page, is there any sensitive information there? Are you able to back up and see that? Because if it is, I might want to just end the stream and delete that portion of the broadcast. Here, let's do this. Lee's pet llama, Lulu. Frightened by the noise, Lee's pet llama, Lulu, took off. She broke through the gate. She took off in a run. She broke through the gate and crashed into Lee, Joe, and Franklin. Thanks for checking, Ford. And crashed into Lee, Joe, and Franklin, who were swept up onto her back. All right, what happens to our friends now? They've been swept up onto the back of a stampeding llama. Where else could they wind up? So the, you didn't hear me read it, but the Proverbs I got when I looked up on there was, that's the end of the beans. And also, mustard up your nose. I think mustard up your nose is a reference to looking snooty and holding your nose high in the air. Like if you saw someone who's acting stuck up, you might say, boy, they sure look like they have mustard up their nose. But as for our friends, let's see, they're running on a llama through the park. Well, I need to think this through. The idea is that we have a crabby friend named Franklin. Now, Franklin, well, he's not crabby so much as he's a pessimist. And I just thought for the first time, I guess he's a crab apple. Ha ha ha. Okay, so we have Franklin. And when people ask him things, he says, when people ask him things, he'll give pessimistic responses. But he's not trying to be mean. And as we saw in the story earlier, he ends his days kind of disappointed that things didn't go better. So that's why Joe wants to help him. Now, I don't think we want, or at least I don't want, Franklin at the end of the story to be like, I've learned my lesson, and be like a happy-go-lucky guy, you know, like. he doesn't have to learn anything, and he can keep being how he is. All right. Lulu ran through the park. And crashed into Perry's pretzel stand. Could we have a pretzel character? Can I draw a pretzel? Nah, I don't want to. We have so few baked good characters, which I'm not against, but I don't think I want to make a pretzel character. Who's Perry? Does anyone have an idea what kind of character Perry could be? Pretzels and mustard flew everywhere. And Perry was swept up onto the galloping ride. I feel like Perry should be like a non is what I was thinking for some reason. Pull your string, said Joe. Never, said Franklin. Yep. Stop this llama, said Perry. Pull your string, said Joe. Never, said Franklin. Well, what now? I have to admit, I just feel so stumped on this story. I'm not... Well, you know, by now, 135 episodes in, we seldom start with an idea of how we're gonna end our story. But this time, I feel particularly lost. I like this development that Franklin is stubborn. Joe thinks he has a better way to go through his days, which is by saying yes to everything, and Franklin doesn't agree to that. And I kind of want to preserve that. I want to keep Franklin... I've been crabby lately. I feel like I've been very crabby lately. And I mean, you don't feel better by getting, mad at others. I get frustrated at Shasta often. But it doesn't help either to just be told to be happy all the time. Franklin could take the hat off and throw it, but that seems awfully mean. Joe put a lot of work into that hat. What could happen? What could happen? Lulu the llama at some point has got to tire out. I mean, she can't run forever, but... don't like being crabby all the time. But I don't want to say yes to everything. It's dangerous. Oh man, this is the most perilous Food City adventure ever. Sure enough, Lulu is galloping towards Penguin Gully. The deepest canyon in Food City. Okay, this is probably too ridiculous. But we know there's a massive desert not so far from Food City. Maybe the desert's just on the other side of this Grand Canyon. No, not the penguins. Well, it's just named after penguins. I don't know, maybe because way up here there's like a rock shaped like a penguin. Way off in the distance we can have the lost temple where they found the dragon. I think actually we maybe need fewer people on the llama. Maybe we should make it just goodbye, Lee Bean. No penguins were harmed in the making of this story. Yep. I like this Perry Non character, but she's not going to be on there. Perry Non's pretzel stand. Man, how do you draw pretzels? There we go. Mustard. Lulu ran through the park and crashed into Perry Non's pretzel stand. Pretzels and mustard flew everywhere. A loud noise should snap Lulu out of it, said Joe. It'll make her run faster, said Franklin. Pull your string, said Joe. Never, said Franklin. You're always trying to get me to say yes. Said Franklin. I don't like being crabby all the time, but I don't want to say yes to everything. It's too dangerous. Sure enough, Lulu was galloping towards Penguin Gully, the deepest canyon in Food City. Here we go. But Franklin, we have to do something, said Joe. Franklin held the string and closed his eyes. Their sizes keep changing on this llama. Okay, here we go. What do you think's going to happen? One of two things, well, one of many things could happen. All right, several things could happen. First off, Franklin could pull the string. It could explode the hat. It could make Lulu run faster, but maybe that's just what they need. Maybe she runs and leaps over the canyon. So it turned out to be a good thing. And Franklin wasn't wrong. It did scare her. There's that. He could pull the string, and maybe the sound could attract the parakeets they frightened earlier. And maybe they didn't faint from fear. Maybe they swooned because they loved the sound so much, but that seems kind of convoluted. But I was thinking maybe the parakeets could come back, swoop in and rescue them. How many parakeets would it take to lift a llama? I don't know. Anything else? Any other ideas? The hats do have balloons in it. The hat does have balloons in it, so the hat could lift them up. Although if the balloons were buoyant enough, they'd probably make the hat float off his head. The hat itself could become like a giant parachute, but that doesn't help our friend Lulu. Pow! The hat exploded again. And Lulu doubled her speed. I told you, said Franklin. He and Joe held each other tightly. And then something amazing happened. What happened? What is this amazing thing that's about to happen? Lulu stopped. Lulu leaped. Or something else entirely. How big is this canyon we set up? We can always change it, of course, but a Lily P comes to the rescue in her dirigible. Let's try the leaping and see how that looks. Lulu leaped over penguin goalie in a single bound. Okay, that's one option. No, that feels too... I mean, how would they have caught up to... and landed on the other side. Joe and Franklin tumbled off. And sat on the ground. Oh, here's poor Lulu. She looks so traumatized. You know, I don't want Lulu to be traumatized. Maybe she's like a racing llama. Like maybe this was actually fun for her. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make Lulu proud of herself. Maybe like she even carries a water bottle. H2O. I'm sorry, said Joe. You don't have to wear that hat if you don't want to. Franklin smiled. Thank you. The two friends took the long way home. The next morning, Joe Cabbage came down the stairs, put on his hat, and said, "What fun things will happen today?" "Hard to say," said Franklin. Who was coming down the steps just behind him. Oh my gosh, I can't draw that eyeball. All right, let's get a nice ending in here. "Hard to say," said Franklin, who was coming down the steps just behind him. I'm kind of thinking that maybe Franklin maybe has learned something from this adventure. Not that he had to learn anything, of course, but I'm thinking maybe instead of a hat, or maybe he has a hat. I'm thinking that Franklin might adopt the saying, yes isn't the worst thing you can say, but that's an awfully wordy t-shirt. Yes. Yes, maybe. Yes, and. Why not? What could Franklin adopt as his new mantra? Whoops. Ooh, running out of batteries already. But I'll be wearing my new hat when they do happen. Said Franklin. Here's Joe Cabbage going, "Hey." So whatever it says, it made Joe happy. Nice hat, said Joe. Ah, what will that hat say? We'll tell you what, it's getting late. Yes, maybe. The end. And that is it for today, episode 135 of the Story Stream. Thank you so much for joining me today on this adventure. Thank you, Ford, for your advice and technical help. I wish you a very pleasant evening. I will be back on Friday afternoon at 3:30, hopefully with my camera setups working in time for an earlier broadcast. So until then, take care and be well. Bye for now.